The holographic cockpit controls slipped through Maya Chen's fingers as laughter erupted from the pilot's lounge down the hall. She adjusted her augmented reality headset and increased the volume on her noise-canceling earbuds, trying to block out the sound of astronauts sharing stories of their latest orbital missions. At 35, she'd mastered the art of invisibility at the International Space Agency's Houston Command Center. "Simulation only strikes again," she heard someone whisper as she passed a group of flight commanders. The nickname had stuck for 4 years now, ever since she'd started appearing silently to fix simulation glitches and vanishing before anyone could properly thank her. They thought it was amusing. They had no idea how right they were. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Her official title was Advanced Simulation Engineer, specializing in deep space navigation, orbital mechanics, and emergency protocols tasks that kept her close to the missions, but invisible to the glory. She preferred it that way. Failure was easier to carry in silence. The morning routine never changed. Arrive at 0500 hours, check the overnight simulation logs, and begin her rounds. The virtual reality lab was her sanctuary, filled with the familiar hum of quantum processors and the faint scent of electronics. Here, among the simulated spacecraft and digital star maps, she could almost forget who she used to be. Almost. Commander Alexis Pierce strode into the lab with her usual entourage of rookie astronauts, their blue jumpsuits crisp and their confidence inflated from another successful training module. At 31, Pierce was everything the space agency wanted in their promotional videos: charismatic, photogenic, and completely unaware of her operational limitations. "Hey Sim," Pierce called out, her voice carrying across the lab. "Still playing pretend spaceflight? Maybe you should stick to coding and let the real astronauts handle the flying." Her team laughed on cue. Lieutenant Ryan Thompson, barely a year out of the academy, added, "Yeah, we need someone who can actually handle zero-G, not just program it into a computer." Maya looked up from the navigation algorithm she was calibrating, her black hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She could see the casual dismissal in their eyes, the easy arrogance that came from never having faced genuine danger. She'd seen that same look in her own reflection once, years ago, when she thought space was just another frontier to conquer. "Just doing my job, Commander," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the lab's ambient noise. Pierce stepped closer, her confidence radiating like solar flares. "Your job is to make our simulations realistic, not to pretend you understand what we face up there. There's a difference between programming a solar storm and actually flying through one while maintaining mission parameters." The other astronauts nodded in agreement. They'd all heard rumors about civilian engineers who couldn't handle the physical demands of spaceflight, who'd washed out of the astronaut program or been relegated to ground control. In their minds, Maya was just another tech who never had what it took to make it beyond the atmosphere. Maya's hands stilled on the navigation console. For a moment, she considered telling them about the time she'd manually recalculated orbital trajectories while their spacecraft's main computer was compromised by solar radiation. She thought about describing the sensation of emergency re-entry procedures at the edge of Earth's atmosphere, or the split-second decisions required to navigate through an unexpected debris field. Instead, she smiled softly, closed her diagnostic program, and walked away. No reaction, no argument, just the quiet dignity of someone who had nothing to prove to anyone. But as she rounded the corner toward the next simulation pod, her fingers unconsciously traced the small, barely visible scar on her left temple, a reminder of the day her helmet had cracked during an emergency spacewalk, and she'd still managed to complete the critical repairs that saved her crew. The young astronauts didn't notice Director Grace Williams watching from the doorway. At 56, Williams had overseen every major space mission for the past decade. And something about the way Maya carried herself had always intrigued her. Not intrigued in a suspicious way, but intrigued like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit where everyone assumed it belonged. She'd been observing Maya for months, noting how she moved through simulation scenarios with the unconscious familiarity of someone who'd spent serious time in actual spacecraft. Engineers learned to respect the virtual environments they built, but they didn't navigate oxygen management systems with the precision of someone who had depended on those same systems to breathe. They didn't anticipate communication delays with the natural rhythm of someone who had experienced the frustration of waiting for mission control's response while hurtling through space. "You know," Williams said quietly to her assistant, Dr. James Kendrick, "that woman knows more about actual spaceflight than she lets on." Kendrick glanced toward Maya, who was now performing a routine diagnostic on the Mars landing simulation. "What makes you say that, Director?" "Watch her hands," Williams replied. "She's not just checking for programming errors. She's feeling for response lag that could affect an actual landing. That's not engineer thinking. That's astronaut thinking." As if sensing their attention, Maya looked up and met Williams' eyes across the lab. For just a moment, the director saw something flicker in her expression, a depth of knowledge and experience that seemed impossible for someone with her official record. Then it was gone, replaced by the familiar mask of professional competence. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The rest of the day passed in routine simulation updates. But Williams couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Maya Chen than anyone realized. She'd reviewed enough personnel files to know that sometimes the most valuable people were the ones who worked hardest to appear ordinary. That evening, as Maya packed up her equipment and prepared to leave for her small apartment near the Space Center, she didn't notice Williams making a discreet call to someone in the Personnel Records Division. She was too busy trying not to think about the medal hidden in her desk drawer at home. The Exceptional Service Medal, awarded to the Artemis 9 crew for their groundbreaking work on establishing the first lunar research outpost. She was listed among those crew members, Captain Maya Chen, navigation specialist, but that was another lifetime ago. 5 astronauts in spacesuits, standing proudly in front of their spacecraft, Artemis 9 emblazoned on the hull. She was second from the left in that photograph, the youngest face, wearing the mission specialist insignia. 3 of those astronauts had been reassigned to desk jobs after the incident. One had left the program entirely. She was the only one who had voluntarily disappeared into the shadows of simulation engineering. Tomorrow would be another day of routine virtual reality scenarios, another day of being invisible, another day of pretending that the most dangerous thing she'd ever done was debug a navigation algorithm. The real astronauts would continue their jokes, never knowing that the woman they called Simulation Only had once been the most intuitive navigator the space program had ever produced. Some secrets were worth keeping. Some reputations were safer in the shadows. At least that's what she told herself every night when she lay awake listening to the distant rumble of rocket tests and remembering what it felt like to break free of Earth's gravity. The anonymous email arrived in Director Williams' inbox at 0630 hours, marked Urgent Personnel Inquiry. The subject line read, Simulation Engineer Chen, background verification required. Williams frowned as she opened the message. It was professionally written but unsigned, requesting a comprehensive review of Maya Chen's service record. The sender claimed to have concerns about potential security clearance discrepancies and suggested that Chen might have access to classified simulation protocols beyond her authorization level. What bothered Williams most wasn't the email itself anonymous. Tips weren't uncommon in a highly competitive agency with billion-dollar missions at stake. What bothered her was the timing. 3 days earlier, she'd received a similar inquiry from security, triggered by her own questions to personnel records. Meanwhile, Maya was having the worst morning of her 4-year exile. The quantum navigation system for the upcoming Europa mission had crashed overnight, leaving her with no way to run the mandatory training simulations required before the astronaut's final certification. Without those simulations, the entire mission timeline would be delayed by at least 6 weeks. Commander Pierce appeared at her shoulder like a cosmic anomaly. "What's the holdup, Sim?" "We've got certification scheduled for today." "System failure," Maya replied, not looking up from the emergency reboot sequence she was attempting. "I'm working on it." Pierce's voice carried the particular edge of an astronaut whose schedule had been disrupted. "Work faster. We've got international partners coming next month, and Director Williams wants everything running perfectly." Maya's fingers paused over the keyboard. She knew exactly what was wrong with the system, a quantum entanglement error in the navigation core that would take the quantum computing team days to identify and fix. She also knew a workaround that could have the system operational in 30 minutes, but it would require accessing protocols that simulation engineers weren't supposed to know existed. "How long?" Pierce pressed. "Standard protocol says I need to wait for the quantum team." "Could be 3 to 4 days. 3 to 4 days? Pierce's voice rose loud enough to attract attention from across the lab. "That's unacceptable. We have a billion-dollar mission waiting on your simulations." Lieutenant Thompson joined the conversation, his young face flushed with the indignation of someone who'd never missed a training deadline due to technical issues. "This is exactly why women don't belong in critical positions. When the pressure's on, they can't handle it." The comment hung in the air like stale recycled oxygen. Maya felt every eye in the lab turn toward her, waiting to see how she'd respond to the blatant sexism. She could hear the whispered conversation starting, the subtle shift in atmosphere that happened when professional competence became a gender issue. "I'm following standard security protocols," she said evenly. "Navigation simulations can't be compromised." Pierce stepped closer, her voice dropping to a tone that somehow managed to be both private and threatening. "Listen, Chen, I don't know what kind of engineering experience you had before coming here, but this is the International Space Agency. We don't have time for by-the-book procedures when there are workarounds available." "There are no authorized workarounds for this system," Maya replied, which was technically true. The workaround she knew about wasn't in any engineering manual. "Then maybe you're not the right person for this job," Thompson added. "Maybe we need someone who can think outside the box when the situation demands it." Maya looked up from the console screen, her dark eyes meeting Thompson's gaze with unsettling calm. "You want me to compromise mission safety protocols to accommodate a training schedule?" "I want you to do whatever it takes to get our simulation running," Pierce said. "That's what we pay you for." The conversation was attracting more attention. Now, other astronauts were gathering, along with engineering staff and mission planners. Maya realized she was being put on display, her competence questioned in front of everyone who mattered at the Space Center. She could feel the weight of their expectations, the unspoken assumption that she would either perform a miracle or prove herself inadequate. It was a no-win situation, carefully constructed by people who'd never had to make life-or-death decisions in the vacuum of space. "I'll see what I can do," she said finally. Maya turned back to the quantum navigation console, her fingers moving across the holographic interface with practiced efficiency. She accessed the system's core architecture, bypassed the entanglement error through a backdoor protocol, and manually realigned the quantum state vectors. The display flickered 3 times, then stabilized, showing the familiar star map of Jupiter's moon system. "Simulation online," she announced. "You can begin your certification training." The lab erupted in surprised murmurs. Pierce stared at the display, her expression shifting from irritation to confusion to something that might have been suspicion. "How did you do that?" she asked. Experience, Maya replied, already moving toward the next simulation pod. But Director Williams was watching from the observation deck above, and this time she wasn't the only one taking notes. Security Officer Michael Stern had recorded the entire exchange, supposedly for system documentation purposes. The timestamp would show that Maya had accomplished in 26 minutes what should have taken the quantum computing team 3 days. As the astronauts dispersed to begin their delayed training, Williams approached Maya with a system access form. "Need you to sign off on this quantum core recalibration," she said casually. But when Maya looked at the form, she realized it wasn't a routine maintenance document. It was a security clearance verification, requesting confirmation of her technical certifications and system access levels. "Director, I'm not authorized to sign clearance verifications," she said. "According to the system logs, you accessed quantum core protocols this morning," Williams replied quietly. "That requires level 3 security clearance. Your file says you're level 1. Maya felt the first real flutter of panic she'd experienced in 4 years. The system was malfunctioning. "I used standard emergency procedures." "No, you didn't," Williams said, not unkindly. "I've been overseeing quantum navigation systems for 15 years. What you did this morning was advanced quantum core realignment. That's not simulation engineering. That's the kind of knowledge that comes from specialized mission training." Their eyes met across the form, and Maya saw something that frightened her more than spacewalking without a tether ever had. Recognition. Williams knew she was hiding something, and she wasn't going to let it go. "I learned some things in my previous position," she said carefully. "Your previous position was junior simulation programmer at Ames Research Center," Williams replied. "I checked. They don't teach quantum core protocols there." Maya signed the form without another word, but her hand was shaking slightly. As she walked away, she could feel Williams' eyes following her, could sense the questions multiplying in the director's mind like micrometeoroids in an orbital path. That evening, she sat in her small apartment and stared at the medal for the first time in months. The Exceptional Service Medal gleamed in the dim light, a testament to achievements no one at the Space Center knew about. She'd thought she could hide forever. She'd thought her secret was safe in the classified files that only 5 people had ever read. But secrets had a way of revealing themselves when you least expected it, especially when you were too good at your job. The phone rang, startling her out of her reverie. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but the voice was familiar. "Maya, this is Director Williams. I need to see you in my office first thing tomorrow morning. We need to discuss your service record." The line went dead, leaving Maya alone with the growing certainty that her 4 years of hiding were about to come to an end. Director Williams' office felt smaller than usual when Maya entered at 0800 hours sharp. The walls were lined with mission patches, photographs of spacecraft, and a massive agency emblem that seemed to dominate the space. Williams sat behind her desk, a thick digital tablet displaying what Maya immediately recognized as personnel files. "Sit down, Chen," she said without looking up. Maya remained standing. "Director, if this is about yesterday's navigation system, I followed all safety protocols." "This isn't about the navigation system." Williams finally looked up, her gray eyes sharp with the kind of scrutiny that made senior engineers nervous. "This is about your background check." The tablet displayed her official service record, but Maya could see additional files open in separate windows. Someone had been digging deeper than the standard personnel database. "When you transferred to Houston 4 years ago, you listed your previous position as junior simulation programmer at Ames," Williams continued. "But Ames has no record of your advanced quantum systems training. In fact, they have no record of you receiving any specialized education beyond basic simulation programming." Maya kept her expression neutral. "I've always been good with quantum systems, Director. Self-taught." "Self-taught," Williams repeated the words slowly, testing their plausibility. She picked up a printed report from her desk. According to Security Officer Stern's documentation, you accessed Level 3 quantum core protocols yesterday morning. That's not self-taught capability. That's specialized mission training that requires years of experience and top-level security clearance. The trap was closing with methodical precision. Maya realized that Stern hadn't just been recording for documentation purposes. He'd been gathering evidence of security protocol violations. Director, the system was malfunctioning. I used emergency procedures. Williams leaned back in her chair, studying Maya's face. Chen, I've been with this agency for 26 years. I've seen every kind of cover-up, every kind of lie, and every kind of half-truth that people use to hide their mistakes. But you're not lying to hide a mistake. You're hiding something much bigger. Before Maya could respond, the office door opened. Dr. Kendrick entered carrying another tablet that looked ominously official. Director, you wanted to see this, Kendrick said, placing the tablet on Williams' desk. Williams picked it up and read for several long moments. Her expression shifted from skepticism to confusion to something that might have been recognition. Chen, she said slowly, this is a classified personnel inquiry I submitted to headquarters yesterday. I asked them to verify your complete service history, including any records that might be above my clearance level. Maya felt her heart rate increase. Director, I don't understand. Headquarters' response is interesting, Williams continued. They confirm that you've been serving as a simulation engineer for 4 years, but they also note that your personnel file contains classified sections that require Level 5 security clearance to access. She looked up from the document. I have Level 4 clearance, Chen. I can access every personnel file in this agency except yours. The only files that require Level 5 clearance are for active deep space mission specialists with critical incident experience. The silence in the office was deafening. Maya could hear her own heartbeat, could feel sweat beginning to form on her palms, despite the climate control. Furthermore, Williams continued, headquarters inquiry triggered an automatic security review. They're sending a team here next week to investigate potential security violations. If they find that you've been accessing systems above your clearance level, or if they discover that you've been concealing your true qualifications, you could face serious consequences. Kendrick stepped forward. Chen, I've been watching your work for months. The way you handle navigation protocols, the way you understand life support systems, the way you knew exactly how to fix that quantum core yesterday. You're not just a simulation engineer. I'm good at my job, Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. You're too good at your job, Williams replied. And that's what's going to get you in trouble. The director stood up and walked to the window overlooking the launch complex. You know what I think, Chen? I think you're former mission specialist or deep space navigator, or something else that explains why your file is classified. And I think you've been hiding it because something went wrong somewhere along the way. She turned back to face Maya. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me the truth right now, or I'm going to recommend that you be transferred to a non-sensitive position pending the security investigation. That means no access to simulations, no access to navigation systems, and no access to anything more complex than basic programming tasks. Maya felt the walls closing in around her. 4 years of careful hiding, 4 years of maintaining the perfect cover, and it was all falling apart because she'd been too competent at fixing a navigation system. I can't tell you what's in my classified file, she said finally. But I can tell you that I've never compromised security, never shared classified information, and never done anything that would endanger this agency or its personnel. That's not good enough, Williams replied. The security team arrives in 7 days. If they find evidence of security violations, you'll be facing much more serious consequences than reassignment. Your only chance is to come clean now and hope they show leniency. Kendrick pulled out a chair and sat down across from Maya. Look, I've been in this business for 20 years. I've seen good people destroy their careers trying to hide things that weren't even that serious. Whatever you're running from, it can't be worse than what you're facing now. Maya looked between the two agency officials, seeing genuine concern in their expressions. They weren't trying to destroy her. They were trying to help her avoid destroying herself. But they didn't understand what she was really hiding, or why she'd been willing to spend 4 years in exile to keep it secret. I need time to think, she said. You have until 0800 tomorrow morning, Williams replied. After that, I file my report recommending your transfer to non-sensitive duties. Once that happens, the investigation becomes automatic, and there's nothing I can do to help you. As Maya walked back to the lab, she felt the weight of every decision she'd made over the past 4 years. She'd thought she was protecting herself by hiding, but she'd actually been building an elaborate deception that was finally collapsing. The astronauts were already in the simulators for their morning certification training. Their voices came through the monitoring system as they practiced approach procedures to Europa's icy surface. Commander Pierce's voice came through the speakers, calling out altitude and approach vectors with the casual confidence of someone who'd never faced real danger in space. Maya stood in the middle of the lab, surrounded by the simulations she'd been maintaining for 4 years, and realized that her time as simulation only was coming to an end. The only question was whether she'd go out quietly, or finally reveal the truth that had been burning inside her for 4 years. That evening, she pulled out the service medal and stared at it for a long time. The Exceptional Service Medal, awarded for extraordinary contributions under extreme circumstances. Lieutenant Sarah Harrison, lost during an unexpected solar storm. Commander Daniel Patel, permanently grounded after radiation exposure. Dr. Melissa Takahashi, resigned after post-traumatic stress. Lieutenant Commander James Foster, transferred to administrative duties. 4 careers altered forever, and she was the only one who had chosen to disappear completely. The only one left to carry the weight of what they'd accomplished and what they'd lost. She had less than 12 hours to decide whether to let that legacy remain buried or to risk everything by revealing who she really was. The decision, when it came, surprised her with its simplicity. She'd been hiding for 4 years, and she was tired of being afraid. It was time to stop running from the past and start fighting for the future. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table with a digital notepad, drafting and deleting different versions of the same impossible conversation. How do you tell your director that you're not who you claim to be? How do you explain 4 years of deception to people who trusted you? At 0500 hours, she made her decision. Instead of going to Williams' office, she walked to the Secure Communications Center in the East Wing of the Space Center. The duty officer, Lieutenant Clara Rodriguez, looked surprised to see a simulation engineer in her normally restricted area. I need to make a classified call, Maya said, presenting her ID card. Rodriguez checked her credentials against the Access database. Sorry, Chen. Simulation personnel don't have authorization for secure communications. Check again, Maya said quietly. Look for any special annotations on my file. Rodriguez frowned but ran her ID through the system again. This time her expression changed completely. I mean, yes, ma'am, she stammered. You're cleared. For level 5 communications. I'll set you up in booth 3. Maya had memorized the number years ago, never thinking she'd actually use it. The call connected almost immediately, and a familiar voice answered. Admiral Jonathan Chen, Deep Space Operations. Sir, this is Captain Maya Chen, Mission Specialist. Artemis 9. I need to invoke Article 12 of the Special Mission Personnel Protection Protocol. The line was silent for nearly 10 seconds. Captain Chen, your file indicates you've been inactive for 4 years. Are you currently under duress? Negative, sir, but my cover has been compromised. I need authorization to reveal my true service record to my current director. Another pause. Stand by. Maya waited, knowing that Admiral Chen, no relation, despite the shared surname, was accessing files that existed in only one location. In the entire agency files that contained the truth about Artemis 9, about the classified missions that had never been publicly acknowledged, about the navigator who had voluntarily buried her own achievements to escape the weight of survivors. Guilt. Captain Chen, you're authorized to reveal your service record to Director Williams and up to 2 other personnel of your choosing. A complete file packet will be delivered to Director Williams within 2 hours. Is there anything else you need? Just one thing, sir. How much trouble am I in? Admiral Chen's voice softened slightly. Maya, you've been carrying a burden that would have broken most people. The fact that you're still serving, still contributing to our mission, tells me everything I need to know about your character. You're not in trouble. You're coming home. At 0800 hours, Maya knocked on Director Williams' office door. The director was already seated behind her desk, the same digital tablet open in front of her. Chen, I hope you're here to tell me the truth. Yes, Director. But first, you're going to receive a classified delivery from headquarters. I recommend you read it before we continue this conversation. Williams raised an eyebrow. You contacted headquarters? I contacted someone who's been waiting 4 years for me to make that call. As if on cue, there was a sharp knock on the door. A courier in formal agency uniform entered, carrying a sealed digital drive marked with classification stamps that made Williams' eyes widen. Director Williams, I have a delivery requiring your personal signature and immediate review. Williams signed for the drive, checked the classification level, and looked at Maya with new respect. This is level 5 classified. How did you read it, Director? Then we'll talk. Williams inserted the drive into her secured tablet and began reading. Maya watched the director's expression change from confusion to amazement to something approaching awe. The document was comprehensive mission reports, commendations, and a complete record of the classified operations that had made Artemis 9 legendary in certain circles. My God, Williams whispered. You're Captain Maya Chen, navigation specialist for Artemis 9. Yes, Director. Williams continued reading. Lieutenant Sarah Harrison was your EV partner. She died during the solar storm emergency. Yes, Director. She died securing the navigation array that I was using to plot our emergency return trajectory. Williams looked up from the tablet, her face pale. After her death, you successfully navigated the damaged spacecraft through a level 5 solar storm with minimal systems and brought the entire crew home safely. Then you voluntarily requested transfer to non-mission duties and had your entire service record classified. Yes, Director. You've been hiding in plain sight for 4 years. Yes, Director. Williams set down the tablet and studied Maya's face. Captain Chen, do you have any idea what this means? You're one of the most accomplished navigators in the agency's history. We have astronaut candidates who study your emergency return trajectory as a theoretical exercise, and they don't even know you're real. Maya remains standing at attention. Director, I've been serving to the best of my ability in my assigned position. I've never compromised security or endangered personnel. Williams picked up the tablet again, scrolling through the classified report. The question is, what do we do now? The security investigation team is still coming next week. But instead of investigating violations, they're going to find one of the most decorated navigation specialists in the agency working as a simulation engineer. That's my choice to make, Director. Is it? Williams walked to the window again. Chen, we're facing the most ambitious deep space mission in human history. The Europa expedition will take astronauts farther from Earth than any humans have ever traveled. We need experienced navigators more than ever, and I've got a living legend debugging simulation code." Before Maya could respond, the door burst open. Dr. Kendrick entered without knocking, his face pale with urgency. "Director, we've got a problem. The Europa mission's advance probe is 18 hours overdue for its orbital insertion burn. Last telemetry showed critical navigation system failures. We've lost contact." Williams grabbed her secure tablet. "Mission Control, what's the status on the Europa probe?" The tablet displayed the live feed from Mission Control. "Director, we lost contact 17 hours ago. The navigation systems were showing cascading failures before telemetry cut out. We're showing no signal from the deep space network. Options? We're working on reestablishment protocols, but the probe is operating autonomously at that distance. If its primary navigation system has failed, it will need to execute a manual orbital insertion using backup systems. The problem is, no one anticipated this kind of failure. The programming for that contingency doesn't exist. How long to develop it? 3 weeks minimum, Director. By then, the probe will have missed its orbital window and the entire mission will be compromised. We're looking at a complete loss of the $2 billion advance probe and a minimum 1-year delay to the manned mission." The control room fell silent. Maya could hear the desperation in the mission controller's voice, could feel the weight of a $1 billion probe tumbling through space with no way to achieve its critical mission. Williams looked at her with sudden realization. "Chen, you're the only person who's ever successfully navigated a spacecraft with failed primary systems at that distance from Earth. Director, that was 4 years ago. I'm not current on them, the Europa mission parameters or the probe systems." "You're current on whatever I say you're current on," Williams interrupted. "And according to this file, you've done something even more complex with less preparation time." Kendrick stepped forward. "Captain, there's a $2 billion probe out there that's about to be lost. It contains critical data that the manned mission will need. They need help now, not in 3 weeks." Maya felt the familiar weight of mission responsibility settling on her shoulders. It was the same feeling she'd had during Artemis 9, when the solar storm hit and the primary navigation systems failed. The moment when everything else faded away except the mission and the technology that needed her expertise. "Director, I'll need access to the probe's full technical specifications and real-time telemetry data. I'll need someone to verify that my clearances are reactivated so I can access the deep space network." "Done," Williams said. "Kendrick, get Captain Chen whatever she needs." As they rushed toward Mission Control, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in 4 years, the electric anticipation of solving an impossible navigation problem, of calculating trajectories that would mean the difference between success and failure. The simulation engineer was about to become Captain Chun again. And this time, she wasn't going to hide from who she really was. The mission was calling, and she was finally ready to answer. The Mission Control Center hummed with frantic energy as Maya followed Dr. Kendrick through the security checkpoint. Technicians rushed between workstations, their faces tense with the kind of focused panic that came with imminent mission failure. On the main display, a blinking red icon showed the last known position of the Europa probe, now silent for nearly 18 hours. "Captain Chen," Director Williams announced as they entered, her voice cutting through the chaos. The room fell into stunned silence. Effective immediately, Captain Chen is taking lead on the Europa probe recovery operation. Commander Pierce stood up from her station, her face a mask of disbelief. "Director, with all due respect, Chen is a simulation engineer. This is an actual deep space emergency." Williams held up her secure tablet, displaying Maya's newly unsealed file. "Commander Pierce, may I introduce Captain Maya Chen, former navigation specialist for Artemis 9, recipient of the Exceptional Service Medal for successful emergency return navigation during a critical system failure." Pierce stared at Maya, her expression shifting from skepticism to confusion. That's impossible. Artemis 9 was 4 years ago. If she was really on that mission, then she would be one of the most decorated navigation specialists in the agency's history, Williams finished. Yes, Commander. That's exactly who has been running your simulations for the past 4 years. Lieutenant Thompson moved closer, studying Maya with new eyes, but the Artemis 9 navigator disappeared after the mission. There were rumors she'd left the agency entirely after the Harrison incident. I didn't leave, Maya said quietly. I just changed positions. The control room remained silent as the implications sank in. The woman they'd been dismissing as simulation only for years was actually the navigator who had pulled off what many considered the most impressive feat of emergency spaceflight in agency history. Captain Chen will need full access to all Europa probe specifications and telemetry, Williams continued, breaking the stunned silence. She also needs a dedicated team of engineers familiar with the probe's navigation systems. I'm on it, Kendrick said, already moving toward a workstation. Pierce hesitated, then stepped forward. Captain, I owe you an apology. I had no idea. Later, Commander, Maya interrupted, already focused on the screens displaying the probe's last transmitted data. Right now, we have a mission to save. As the room burst back into activity, Maya felt the familiar rhythm of mission operations returning to her. The structured chaos, the precise technical language, the absolute focus on the problem at hand. It was like slipping into a well-worn spacesuit, constricting at first, but ultimately providing the protection needed to survive in a hostile environment. Talk to me about the probe's navigation redundancies, she said to the lead mission engineer, a nervous young man named Dr. Alex Patel. The primary system is a quantum positioning array linked to deep space beacons, Patel explained, pulling up schematics on the main display. Backup is an autonomous star tracking system with pre-programmed orbital parameters. And you've lost contact with both? Yes, Captain. The final telemetry showed cascading failures in the quantum array, and the star tracker wasn't responding to activation commands. Maya studied the technical readouts, her mind already calculating possibilities. Show me the probe's last transmitted position and trajectory. As the data appeared on screen, Maya began to see the problem. The Europa probe was approaching its orbital insertion point, but without functioning navigation systems, it would either miss the moon entirely or, worse, crash into its icy surface. What about remote activation of the emergency beacon? She asked. We've been trying, Patel said. No response. Whatever knocked out the navigation systems may have compromised communications as well. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, visualizing the probe's position relative to Europa and Jupiter. The massive gas giant's gravitational field would be affecting the probe's trajectory, creating complexities that even the most advanced computers struggled to model accurately. Dr. Patel, I need you to access the probe's deep programming layers. There's an emergency protocol buried in the system architecture, not in the official documentation, but in the actual code. Patel looked confused. Captain, I wrote that code. There's no hidden protocol. Yes, there is, Maya said with quiet certainty. It's a navigation system override developed for the Artemis program after our incident. It was incorporated into all subsequent deep space missions as a failsafe. The documentation was classified, but the code was implemented. The young engineer looked skeptical but began searching through the probe's programming architecture. After several minutes, his expression changed. There's something here, embedded in the base navigation protocols. It looks like a manual override system, but it's incredibly complex. That's it, Maya confirmed. It allows for direct mathematical input of navigational parameters, bypassing all automated systems. Essentially, it turns the spacecraft into a manually guided vehicle like the early days of spaceflight. but with modern propulsion. But that would require impossibly precise calculations, Patel objected. The orbital mechanics around Jupiter are some of the most complex in the solar system. Even our supercomputers need significant time to model them accurately. I don't need a computer, Maya said quietly. I need the exact position of Jupiter and Europa at this moment, the probe's last known trajectory, and its fuel reserves. The room fell silent again as the implications became clear. Maya Chen wasn't just going to try to re-establish contact. With the probe, she was going to attempt to manually navigate it into orbit around Europa, performing calculations that normally required supercomputers. Director Williams stepped forward. "Captain, are you certain this is possible?" "No," Maya admitted. "But it's the only option we have. The probe will reach its point of no return in approximately 6 hours. If it doesn't execute its orbital insertion burn by then, it will either crash or fly past Europa altogether." Williams studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "What do you need?" "A quiet room, all the data we have on the probe's current status, and no interruptions for at least 3 hours." As the control room burst into renewed activity, gathering the information Maya had requested, Commander Pierce approached her. "Again, Captain, I'd like to assist if possible." Maya looked at the commander, seeing genuine respect where there had only been dismissal before. "Actually, Commander, there is something you can do. I need someone to prepare the communications sequence that will transmit my calculations to the probe once they're complete. It's going to be a very narrow window of opportunity." Pierce nodded. "Consider it done." 3 hours later, Maya sat alone in a small conference room adjacent to mission control, surrounded by digital displays showing orbital trajectories, gravitational fields, and the complex dance of Jupiter's moons. Her fingers flew across multiple keyboards as she worked through the intricate mathematics of deep space navigation. What the rest of the team didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, was that Maya wasn't just doing calculations. She was visualizing the entire system, feeling the gravitational pulls and orbital velocities as if they were physical sensations. This was what had made her exceptional as a navigator, this almost supernatural ability to intuit the mathematics of orbital mechanics. It was also what had saved Artemis 9 when their navigation systems failed during the solar storm, and what had cost Lieutenant Sarah Harrison her life when she ventured outside to repair the external sensors that Maya needed. The guilt had been overwhelming. Harrison had died so that Maya could work her navigational magic, and Maya had never forgiven herself for not finding another solution, one that didn't require her friend to sacrifice herself. That was why she had disappeared into the simulation department after the mission. Not because she couldn't handle the acclaim, but because she couldn't bear the knowledge that her specialized skills had indirectly cost someone their life. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Director Williams entered, carrying the cup of coffee. "How's it coming, Captain?" Maya rubbed her eyes, feeling the strain of hours of intense concentration. "I've almost got it. The mathematics are challenging." Williams set down the coffee and studied the complex equations covering the displays. "I've been reviewing your file more thoroughly. What you did during Artemis 9. "I don't want to talk about Artemis 9, Maya interrupted. "I understand," Williams said quietly. "But there's something you should know. After you transferred to simulations, Admiral Chun had a full investigation conducted into the Harrison incident." Maya's hands stilled on the keyboard. "What?" "The investigation concluded that there was no alternative approach that would have saved the mission. Harrison's actions were necessary, and your navigation calculations saved the lives of the other 3 crew members. You've been carrying guilt for something that wasn't your fault." Maya stared at the equations on the wire screen, seeing them blur as unexpected tears formed. "She was my friend, and she was doing her job just like you were doing yours," Williams said gently. Just like you're doing now, trying to save a mission that most people would consider lost. The director moved toward the door, then paused. The security investigation that was scheduled for next week, it wasn't really about security concerns. Admiral Chen was looking for an excuse to bring you back into active mission operations. He's been waiting 4 years for you to be ready. After Williams left, Maya sat motionless for several minutes, absorbing this new information. The idea that she hadn't been responsible for Harrison's death, that there truly had been no other option, was both liberating and painful. She had built her entire existence around that guilt for 4 years. Turning back to the displays, she took a deep breath and refocused on the Europa probe. Maybe she couldn't change the past, but she could affect the present. With renewed determination, she completed the final calculations for the manual navigation sequence. At the 5-hour mark, Maya returned to mission control with a data drive containing her completed calculations. The room hushed as she entered. "The navigation sequence is ready," she announced. "Commander Pierce, is the communication protocol prepared?" Pierce nodded, looking impressed. "Ready and verified, Captain. But we still haven't re-established contact with the probe." "We won't need to," Maya explained, inserting the drive into the main console. "The emergency protocol I mentioned is designed to activate automatically when it receives a properly formatted navigation sequence with the correct authentication codes. The probe will execute the sequence whether it can communicate with us or not." Dr. Patel looked skeptical. "That's a pretty significant security vulnerability." "It's also the only reason we might be able to save this mission," Maya countered. "The protocol was created specifically for situations like this, when normal communications are impossible, but the mission can still be salvaged with direct navigational input." Director Williams joined them at the main console. "The transmission window opens in 15 minutes. Once we send the sequence, how long until we know if it worked?" 43 minutes, Maya replied. "That's how long it will take for the signal to reach the probe, plus the time for the probe to execute the sequence and for confirmation signals to return if the communication system comes back online once the navigation issue is resolved." The next hour was excruciating. The navigation sequence was transmitted precisely on schedule, disappearing into the vast distance between Earth and Jupiter's moon system. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Maya stood motionless by the main display, watching the countdown timer tick away the seconds until they might receive confirmation. Around her, the control room was utterly silent, everyone aware that they were witnessing either a miraculous rescue or the final moments of a failed mission. At exactly 43 minutes after transmission, the communications console remained silent. No confirmation signal, no telemetry, nothing to indicate the probe had received their instructions. "It didn't work," Pierce said quietly. "Wait," Maya replied, her eyes fixed on the Deep Space Network display. The signal would take at least 43 minutes to return, assuming instant processing by the probe. If there was any delay in execution, another minute passed, then another. The tension in the room was palpable. At 47 minutes, a small light on the communications console began blinking. "We've got signal," the communications officer shouted. "Receiving telemetry from the Europa probe." The main display erupted with incoming data. The probe was alive, its systems coming back online one by one. Most importantly, it was executing a perfect orbital insertion maneuver around Europa, precisely following the navigation sequence Maya had calculated. The control room exploded in cheers and applause. Dr. Patel was staring at the trajectory data in amazement. "These calculations, they're perfect. The probe is establishing the exact orbital path required for the mission objectives." Director Williams turned to Maya, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "Captain Chen, you just saved a $2 billion mission and kept the Europa program on schedule. I think it's safe to say your days in the simulation lab are over." Maya watched the incoming telemetry with a complex blend of emotions. Pride in her work, relief at the mission's success, and a strange sense of homecoming, as if she had finally returned to where she belonged after a long exile. Commander Pierce approached, extending her hand. "Captain, that was the most impressive feat of navigation I've ever witnessed. On behalf of the Europa mission team, thank you." Maya accepted the handshake, noting the genuine respect in Pierce's eyes. "Just doing my job, Commander." "No," Pierce said firmly. "You were doing what only you could do. There's a difference." As the celebration continued around her, Maya found herself thinking about Lieutenant Sarah Harrison and the Artemis 9 mission. For the first time in 4 years, the memory didn't bring overwhelming guilt. Instead, she felt a sense of continuation, as if the work she'd done today was connected to the work she and Harrison had done together. Maybe that was the real tribute to her friend's sacrifice, not hiding away in simulations, but using her unique abilities to ensure other missions succeeded, other lives were protected. The next morning, Maya arrived at the Space Center to find her security credentials had been completely updated. Her new ID badge read, Captain Maya Chen, Senior Navigation Specialist, and granted her access to areas of the facility she hadn't entered in 4 years. Director Williams was waiting for her in the executive conference room, along with Admiral Chen, who had arrived overnight from headquarters. The Admiral stood as she entered, his expression serious but approving. "Captain Chen," he said, extending his hand. "Welcome back to active status." Maya accepted the handshake with a strange mixture of emotions. "Thank you, sir. Though technically, I never left." "No," he agreed. "You just found a different way to serve. But I think we both know where your true talents lie." Director Williams gestured for Maya to take a seat at the conference table, where several digital tablets were arranged. "Captain, we need to discuss your future role here at the center." Maya sat down, feeling a flutter of apprehension. "I assume I won't be returning to the simulation lab." "Not unless you want to," Williams replied. "But I suspect you'd find it rather limiting now that everyone knows who you really are." Admiral Chen activated the main display on the wall, showing the Europa mission timeline. "What you accomplished yesterday was remarkable, Captain. You saved a critical mission component using skills that, frankly, no one else in the agency possesses. It's made us realize how vulnerable we are to the loss of specialized expertise. Sir, the Europa manned mission is the most ambitious project in the agency's history," he continued. 6 astronauts traveling farther from Earth than humans have ever ventured, to establish the first research station on another world beyond the moon. The risks are unprecedented. Williams picked up the explanation. "Navigation will be the most critical element. Europa's orbit around Jupiter creates complex gravitational fields that change constantly. Traditional automated systems can handle normal operations, but if anything goes wrong, you need someone who can navigate manually if necessary," Maya finished, beginning to understand where this was heading. "Exactly," Admiral Chen confirmed. "We need you on the Europa mission, Captain. Not as a simulation engineer, but as Chief Navigation Specialist." Maya felt her heart rate increase. They weren't just asking her to return to her former role. They were offering her a position on the most important mission of the decade. "Admiral, I haven't been on active flight status for 4 years. There are qualification requirements, physical conditioning, training protocols, all of which can be expedited for someone with your experience and demonstrated capabilities," Williams interjected. "The mission launches in 8 months. That's more than enough time to bring you fully up to speed." Maya looked between the 2 senior officials, seeing their absolute confidence in her abilities. It was both flattering and terrifying. "What about the current navigation team?" "Commander Pierce and her crew have been training for this mission for years." Pierce will remain as mission commander, Admiral Chen explained. You would work with her team, bringing your specialized expertise to complement their training. After yesterday, I don't think there will be any questions about your qualifications. As if on cue, the conference room door opened and Commander Pierce entered, along with Lieutenant Thompson and 2 other astronauts Maya recognized from the Europa training group. They were all carrying coffee cups, apparently having been invited to this meeting as well. Pierce nodded respectfully to Maya as she took a seat across the table. Captain Chen, I've been informed of the Admiral's proposal. I want you to know that my team and I fully support your addition to the mission. What you did yesterday proved that you have skills we might critically need out there. Thompson looked distinctly uncomfortable but managed to meet Maya's eyes. Captain, I owe you an apology for my comments in the lab. I was uninformed and unprofessional. We all were, Pierce added. We've spent the past 12 hours reviewing the classified files on Artemis 9 that Director Williams made available to us. What you accomplished during that emergency return. It's the kind of navigation that can't be taught, only experienced. Maya studied their faces, seeing genuine respect where there had only been dismissal before. Still, the prospect of returning to active mission status, especially on such a high-profile assignment, was daunting. I appreciate the confidence, she said carefully, but I need to be certain that I'm mission-ready before I commit to something this critical. Admiral Chen nodded. Of course. We've arranged for you to begin recertification immediately. Simulator time, physical conditioning, psychological evaluation, the works. If at any point you or our evaluation team determines you're not prepared, we'll reassess. Williams slid one of the tablets toward Maya. This is the preliminary training schedule. As you can see, it's aggressive but thorough. We're not taking any shortcuts on preparation. Maya scanned the document, noting the comprehensive approach to bringing her back to full mission readiness. It was exactly what she would have designed herself, challenging, but not impossible. There's one more thing you should know, Admiral, Chen added. The Europa mission has a special designation. It's being called Artemis 10, Maya looked up sharply. Sir, it was already in the planning stages when Artemis 9 returned, he explained. After what happened, the designation was put on hold. But now, with you potentially joining the mission, it seems fitting to revive it. A continuation of what your team started 4 years ago. The symbolism wasn't lost on Maya. Artemis 10 would be both a new beginning and a completion of what Artemis 9 had meant to accomplish before the solar storm changed everything. I'd like some time to consider this, she said finally. Of course, Williams replied, but not too much time. Training needs to begin within the week if you're going to be fully prepared for launch. As the meeting concluded and the others filed out, Commander Pierce lingered behind. Captain Chen, may I speak with you privately? Maya nodded, curious about what the commander might want to say without the others present. Once they were alone, Pierce's professional demeanor softened. Slightly. I wanted you to know that I've requested Lieutenant Harrison's service record. I thought, if you do join the mission, we might find a way to honor her memory. Perhaps naming one of the navigation systems after her. The unexpected gesture caught Maya off guard. For 4 years, she had carried Harrison's memory alone. A private burden that no one else at the center shared or even knew about. The idea that others might now help carry that memory, might even celebrate it, was both painful and profoundly moving. She would have liked that, Maya said quietly. She always said that navigation was what would get humanity to the stars. Pierce nodded. One more thing. The simulation programs you've been designing for the past 4 years, they're the most realistic navigation scenarios any of us have ever trained with. You weren't just hiding in the simulation lab. You were preparing the next generation of navigators to face the kind of challenges you encountered on Artemis 9. As Pierce left, Maya remained in the conference room, contemplating this new perspective. On her years in exile, she had viewed her time in simulations as a retreat, a way to hide from her past. But perhaps it had been something else entirely, a different kind of mission, preparing others for the dangers she had faced firsthand. The tablet with the training schedule still lay on the table before her. 8 months of intensive preparation, followed by a 3-year mission to the most distant human outpost ever established. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. 4 years ago, she had run from her abilities because they had been linked to tragedy. Now she was being asked to embrace those same abilities as essential to the future of space exploration. Maya picked up the tablet and scrolled through the detailed training plan. The path back to active mission status would be challenging, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But for the first time in 4 years, she felt ready to face those challenges. Simulation only had served her purpose, allowing her to contribute while she healed from the trauma of Artemis 9. But perhaps it was finally time for Captain Maya Chen to reclaim her place among the stars, not despite what had happened on Artemis 9, but because of it. As she left the conference room, Maya passed the main mission display where the Europa probe's telemetry continued to stream in. The probe was now in a perfect orbit around the icy moon, gathering the critical data that would make the human mission possible. She had done that, saved a mission that others had considered lost using skills that no one else possessed. For the first time in 4 years, Maya felt not just competent, but exceptional. Not just useful, but essential. Perhaps that was the final lesson of Artemis 9, the truth that had been waiting for her to discover. Some missions could only be completed by those who had already faced the worst that space had to offer and survived to navigate again. The training module flickered to life around Maya as she initiated the Europa approach simulation for the 3rd time that day. The virtual spacecraft responded to her touch with increasing familiarity as she guided it through Jupiter's complex gravitational field toward the icy moon that was their destination. 6 months had passed since she'd saved the Europa probe. And in that time, she had transformed herself from a simulation engineer back into an active mission specialist. "Looking good, Captain," came Commander Pierce's voice through the communication system. "Your approach vector is perfect." Maya made a minor adjustment to compensate for a simulated radiation burst from Jupiter. "Thanks, Commander. How's the rest of the team performing?" "Dr. Kim is finalizing the surface expedition protocols, and Lieutenant Thompson is running power conservation drills. We're on schedule for final mission certification next week." The simulation continued for another 40 minutes, with Maya successfully guiding the virtual spacecraft into Europa orbit despite increasingly difficult system failures programmed into the scenario. When she finally emerged from the simulator pod, she found Admiral Chen waiting for her. "Impressive work, Captain," he said, reviewing her performance metrics on a tablet. "You've not only regained your former skills but surpassed them." Maya removed her neural interface headset and stretched her shoulders. "The simulation systems have improved significantly in 4 years. Some of those improvements were my designs." "Yes, I know," Chen replied with a small smile. "You've been preparing for this mission longer than anyone realized, including yourself." As they walked toward the briefing room, Maya reflected on the whirlwind of the past 6 months. Her recertification had been grueling physical conditioning to rebuild the muscle mass she'd lost during her years at a desk, psychological evaluations to ensure she'd processed the trauma of Artemis 9, and countless hours in simulators reacquainting herself with the complexities of deep space navigation. But more challenging than any of that had been reintegrating with the astronaut corps. The people who had once dismissed her as simulation only now looked at her with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and in some cases, lingering skepticism. Proving herself in crisis with the Europa probe was one thing. Becoming a trusted crew member was another entirely. "The final mission briefing is tomorrow," Admiral Chen said as they reached the conference room. "After that, You and the crew enter. Pre-launch isolation. Are you ready for this, Captain? Maya considered the question carefully. Professionally, yes. Personally, I'm getting there. Chun nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind her words. Harrison would be proud of you, you know. Coming back like this takes courage. It's not about courage, Maya replied quietly. It's about purpose. I spent 4 years hiding from what happened on Artemis 9. Now I need to face it by completing what we started. Artemis 10, Chun said with a nod. A fitting continuation. Inside the briefing room, the rest of the mission team was already gathered. Commander Pierce and Lieutenant Thompson were discussing trajectory calculations, while Dr. Kim and Dr. Patel were deep in conversation about surface sampling procedures. The final crew member, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the mission's exobiologist, was reviewing data from the Europa probe on a tablet. They all looked up as Maya entered, and she was struck once again by the transformation in their attitudes. 6 months ago, these same people had barely acknowledged her existence, except to mock her status as a simulation engineer. Now they regarded her as an essential part of the team, the navigator who might very well determine the success or failure of their historic mission. Captain Chun, Pierce greeted her with a respectful nod. We were just discussing the final approach parameters. Would you mind reviewing our calculations? Maya joined them at the holographic display table, where a 3-dimensional model of the Jupiter system rotated slowly. What are your concerns, Commander? The radiation levels around Jupiter are fluctuating more than anticipated, Pierce explained. The probe's latest data shows a 17% increase in the intensity of the radiation belts we'll need to traverse. We've adjusted our shielding protocols, but I'm concerned about navigation sensor degradation. Maya studied the radiation maps, her mind already calculating alternative approaches. This was why she had been brought back, her ability to visualize complex orbital mechanics and find solutions that others couldn't see. We could approach from a higher inclination, she suggested, manipulating the holographic display to show a different trajectory. It adds 3 days to our journey, but reduces radiation exposure by nearly 30%. Dr. Patel shook his head. The additional fuel requirements would compromise our safety margins for return. Not necessarily, Maya countered, making further adjustments to the display. If we use Europa's gravity for a slingshot effect on departure, we can compensate for the additional fuel expenditure on approach. The room fell silent as the team studied her proposed solution. It was elegant, unexpected, and precisely the kind of innovative thinking that had made Maya legendary before her self-imposed exile. That's brilliant, Thompson admitted, the last traces of his former skepticism finally fading. I wouldn't have considered that approach. Few would, Admiral Chun commented from the doorway. That's why Captain Chun is on this mission. The meeting continued for another hour, with the team finalizing the last details of their historic journey. As they prepared to disperse for their individual preparations, Commander Pierce raised her hand for attention. One more item, she announced. As you know, we've been discussing how to honor Lieutenant Sarah Harrison's memory on this mission. After consultation with Captain Chun and approval from Admiral Chun, we've decided to name our navigation system the Harrison Guidance Array. The official dedication will be part of our launch ceremony next month. Maya felt a complex surge of emotions: grief for her lost friend, gratitude for this recognition, and a sense of completion that had been missing for 4 years. She had been hiding from Harrison's memory, but now she would carry it forward into the very environment where they had once worked together. After the meeting, Maya retreated to her quarters at the Space Center. The small apartment had become her home during the intensive training period, decorated sparsely but with a few meaningful items. The Exceptional Service Medal now sat on her desk rather than hidden in a drawer, a daily reminder of both tragedy and triumph. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Lieutenant Thompson standing awkwardly in the hallway. "Captain, do you have a moment?" he asked, his usual confidence noticeably absent. Maya nodded and gestured him inside. Their relationship had been the most difficult to repair after her true identity was revealed. His sexist comment during the navigation system crisis had hung between them, acknowledged but not fully addressed. Thompson remained standing, as if unsure of his welcome. "I wanted to speak with you privately before we enter isolation tomorrow." "What's on your mind, Lieutenant?" He took a deep breath. "I need to properly apologize for how I treated you when you were in simulations. Especially that comment about women in critical positions. It was unprofessional, untrue, and completely unacceptable." Thompson nodded soberly. "That's precisely why I wanted to have this conversation. When we're out there, I need you to know that I trust your judgment completely, not despite you being a woman, but because you're the most qualified navigator in the program." Before he left, Maya stood at her window, looking out at the launch complex where the Artemis 10 spacecraft waited, its massive form illuminated against the night sky. In just 1 month, that vehicle would carry her back to the environment where she truly belonged, the complex, dangerous, magnificent emptiness of deep space. 4 years ago, she had fled from that environment, haunted by guilt and loss. Now, she was deliberately returning, not to escape her past, but to honor it through continued service. The pre-launch isolation period passed quickly, filled with final simulations, medical evaluations, and equipment checks. The 6 crew members of Artemis 10 operated with increasing cohesion, their individual specialties blending into a synchronized team that could handle whatever challenges Europa might present. On the morning of the launch, Maya awoke hours before the scheduled departure time. She performed her pre-flight meditation routine, calming her mind and focusing her thoughts on the complex navigation challenges that lay ahead. Then she opened the small personal effects container she was allowed to take on the mission. Inside was a photograph, not the official Artemis 9 crew portrait, but a candid shot taken during training. Sarah Harrison was laughing at something off camera, her face alight with the joy of pursuing her dream of space exploration. Maya had kept this photo hidden for years, unable to look at it without overwhelming guilt. Now she carefully placed it in her flight suit pocket, a private talisman for the journey ahead. The crew transport vehicle delivered them to the launch pad at exactly 0500 hours. The massive Artemis 10 spacecraft loomed above them, fueled and ready for its historic journey. Media cameras tracked their progress as they made their way to the elevator that would take them to the crew compartment. Just before they entered, Director Williams approached Maya. "Captain Chen," she said, extending her hand. 4 months ago, you were hiding in my simulation lab. Today you're about to make history. I don't think I've ever seen such a remarkable transformation." Maya shook the offered hand. "The transformation happened 4 years ago, Director. I just finally stopped fighting it." The boarding process was methodical and precise, each crew member taking their assigned position within the spacecraft. As Chief Navigation Specialist, Maya's station was adjacent to Commander Pierce's, with holographic displays providing her with constant access to the ship's positioning data. "Communication check," Pierce announced as they completed pre-launch procedures. "Navigation?" "Navigation systems online and nominal," Maya responded, feeling the familiar rhythm of mission protocols returning as if she had never left. "Life support? All systems green," reported Dr. Rodriguez. "Power systems? Optimal configuration confirmed," Thompson replied. One by one, each system was verified, each crew member confirming their readiness for the mission ahead. "Mission controls." Voice came through clearly. "Artemis 10, you are go for launch sequence initiation. T-minus 10 minutes and counting." Pierce turned to her crew. "Final thoughts before we make history?" Dr. Kim smiled. "We're about to travel farther from Earth than any humans in history. I'd say we've already made history just by sitting here. The real history will be what we discover on Europa, Dr. Rodriguez added. If there's life under that ice, nothing will ever be the same. Maya remained silent, her focus already turning to the complex series of maneuvers that would carry them safely out of Earth's gravity well and on their long journey to Jupiter's moon system. Captain Chen, Pierce prompted. Any navigation wisdom to share before launch? Maya looked up from her displays. The stars don't care about our history. They only care about our calculations. Thompson laughed. That should be the navigation department's motto. The final minutes ticked away, each second bringing them closer to departure. Maya's hands moved across her console, performing last-moment verifications of the navigation systems. Everything was perfect as it needed to be for a journey of such unprecedented distance. To -60 seconds came the announcement from Mission Control. Maya felt the familiar surge of anticipation, not fear, but the electric awareness that came before breaking the bonds of Earth. She had experienced this feeling on every mission, including Artemis 9. The difference was that this time she was fully present for it, not hiding behind the false confidence of youth. The -30 seconds. All systems go. Commander Pierce's voice was steady over the internal communication system. Artemis 10 crew, remember your training, trust your teammates, and make every moment count. We carry humanity's hopes with us. To -1098. Maya closed her eyes briefly, allowing herself one moment of connection with the past. Sarah Harrison had sat in a seat much like this one 4 years ago, filled with the same mix of anticipation and purpose. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. The massive engines ignited, and Artemis 10 began its journey with a controlled violence that pressed the crew back into their seats. Maya felt the powerful G-forces with a sense of homecoming, this physical sensation that could never be fully replicated in simulations. The launch sequence proceeded flawlessly, each stage separation occurring precisely on schedule. As they achieved initial orbit, Maya's hands moved across her navigation console with practiced efficiency, confirming their position and preparing for the trans-Jupiter injection burn that would send them on their long journey. Navigation confirms optimal orbital insertion, she reported. All parameters within expected ranges. Copy that, navigation, Pierce responded. Prepare for solar array deployment. The massive solar arrays that would power their journey unfolded like golden wings, capturing the sun's energy to sustain them on their voyage. On Maya's displays, the power readings climbed steadily as each panel activated. Power systems report full deployment, Thompson confirmed. We're generating 108% of expected output. The new array design is outperforming projections. 6 hours later, after completing a full systems verification in Earth orbit, Artemis 10 was ready for its departure burn. This was the critical maneuver that would set them on their course for Jupiter, a 3-month journey through the void of deep space. Mission Control, this is Artemis 10, Commander Pierce announced. We are go for trans-Jupiter injection burn. Copy that, Artemis 10. You are cleared for TJI. Godspeed. Maya's hands moved across her console, inputting the final parameters for the burn. This was her domain, the precise calculations that would send them hurtling across the solar system with unerring accuracy. Navigation systems configured for core TJI, she reported. Burn parameters locked and verified. Initiating TJI in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. The main engines fired again, a sustained burn that would accelerate them to the velocity needed to reach Jupiter. On Maya's displays, the trajectory plot updated in real time, showing their gradual departure from Earth's gravitational influence. When the engines finally cut off, a profound silence filled the spacecraft. They were now committed to their journey, Earth already beginning to shrink behind them. TJI burn complete, Maya announced. Telemetry confirms we are on optimal trajectory for Jupiter intercept. All navigation parameters nominal. Commander Pierce unbuckled her restraints and floated free in the zero-gravity environment. Excellent work, everyone. Artemis 10 is officially underway. As the other crew members celebrated this milestone, Maya remained at her station, making final adjustments to their trajectory. The real work of navigation was just beginning, monitoring their course, planning for the small correction burns that would be necessary during their journey, preparing for the complex approach to Jupiter's radiation-filled environment. Dr. Rodriguez floated over to Maya's station. Not joining the celebration, Captain. Maya looked up from her displays. I'll celebrate when we're safely in orbit around Europa. The exobiologist smiled. Always the cautious navigator. But you should take a moment to appreciate what you've accomplished. 6 months ago, you were hiding in the simulation lab. Now you're guiding humanity's most ambitious space mission. I wasn't hiding, Maya replied, though she knew that wasn't entirely true. I was waiting. For what? For this, Maya said simply, gesturing to her navigation station. For the moment when my skills would truly be needed again. During the long journey to Jupiter, the crew settled into a routine of scientific observations, system maintenance, and ongoing training for their arrival at Europa. Maya spent much of her time fine-tuning their trajectory, making the minute adjustments that would ensure they arrived precisely where they needed to be. 2 months into their journey, as Jupiter began to grow from a bright point of light to a discernible disk, Maya was working late in the navigation center when Commander Pierce joined her. You should get some rest, Captain, Pierce advised. You've been at those calculations for 14 hours straight. Maya rubbed her eyes, feeling the fatigue of sustained concentration. Jupiter's gravitational field is more complex than our models predicted. I need to account for these variations before we begin our approach sequence. Pierce studied the navigation displays. Is there a problem with our trajectory? Not yet, Maya replied. But I've been analyzing the probe data more carefully. There are subtle gravitational anomalies that could affect our approach. Nothing dangerous if we're prepared for them, but potentially problematic if we rely solely on automated systems. The commander sat down in the adjacent seat. This is why we need you, isn't it? Not just for your technical skills, but for your intuition about space itself. Maya continued working as she considered this observation. I wouldn't call it intuition. It's more like pattern recognition based on experience. I've navigated in Jupiter's vicinity before. During Artemis 9, I remember how the ship responded in ways that didn't quite match our models. Experience that saved your crew then and the Europa probe 6 months ago, Pierce noted, and will likely save us when we arrive. For the first time, Maya paused in her calculations and turned to face the commander directly. Can I ask you something personal, Commander? Of course. Why did you push so hard for me to join this mission? After the way you and your team treated me in the simulation lab, I would have expected you to resist my assignment. Pierce was silent for a moment, clearly weighing her response. Because I was wrong about you, and I'm capable of admitting when I'm wrong. More importantly, I want this mission to succeed, and you give us the best chance of that happening. She hesitated, then continued more quietly. Also because I reviewed the complete file on Artemis 9 after your identity was revealed. What you did during that solar storm emergency navigating a damaged spacecraft through radiation levels that should have fried all your systems. It wasn't just impressive. It was impossible, yet you did it. Maya turned back to her displays, uncomfortable with the admiration in Pierce's voice. It wasn't impossible, just extremely difficult. 6 other navigation specialists reviewed the telemetry afterward. Pierce persisted. None of them could determine how you plotted that return trajectory with the damaged systems you had available. Even the simulation engineers couldn't replicate it. That's because they were thinking like computers, Maya replied, her fingers moving across the control surfaces as she adjusted their approach parameters. Spacecraft don't just move according to physics equations. They have personalities, tendencies, unique responses to conditions. You have to feel the ship's motion, not just calculate it. Pierce smiled. And that's exactly why you're here, Captain Chen. Because when we're approaching Europa and our navigation systems are being affected by Jupiter's radiation, we'll need someone who can feel our trajectory, not just compute it. As Jupiter grew larger in their viewing ports, the crew's excitement and tension mounted. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, navigating safely through Jupiter's intense radiation belts to reach its ice-covered moon, where they would establish humanity's first research station beyond the Earth-Moon system. The day before their scheduled Jupiter orbital insertion, Maya called the crew together for a navigation briefing. Using the holographic display in the command center, she showed them the refined approach trajectory she had calculated. Our original flight plan would have taken us through this sector of Jupiter's radiation belt, she explained, highlighting a region of intense radiation. Based on the probe data and my recalculations, I've plotted an alternative approach that threads between these two radiation zones. Dr. Kim studied the new trajectory with a frown. That looks dangerously close to Jupiter's upper atmosphere. Won't that increase our risk of encountering unexpected turbulence? Under normal circumstances, yes, Maya acknowledged. But I've been monitoring a consistent pattern in Jupiter's atmospheric behavior. There's a calm region that occurs predictably in this sector. If we time our approach precisely, we can use it to our advantage. And if the pattern changes? Thompson asked. Then I'll adjust our course manually, Maya replied with simple confidence. The automated systems can't react quickly enough to Jupiter's complex environment. For this phase of the mission, we need human navigation. Commander Pierce nodded. Her agreement. Captain Chen has my complete confidence for this approach. We've discussed the contingencies, and I believe this gives us our best chance for a safe arrival at Europa. As the briefing concluded, Dr. Rodriguez approached Maya privately. That was Harrison's discovery, wasn't it? The atmospheric pattern. You mentioned. Maya looked at her in surprise. How did you know that? I was reviewing some of the Artemis 9 scientific data for comparison with our current readings, Rodriguez explained. I found notes about atmospheric behavior patterns observed by Lieutenant Harrison. She theorized they could be used for safer approaches, but the idea was never implemented after. After what happened? Maya nodded, a familiar pang of grief, mingling with a new sense of purpose. Sarah was brilliant at recognizing patterns that others missed. She documented this one during our approach to Jupiter, but we never had the chance to use it. Now her discovery might save Artemis 10. A fitting tribute, Rodriguez said softly. Her work continues through you. The next day, as Jupiter filled their viewports with its swirling storms and massive presence, the crew of Artemis 10 prepared for the most dangerous phase of their mission. The radiation shielding was at maximum. All non-essential systems were powered down to prevent damage from electromagnetic interference, and every crew member was secured at their station. Maya sat at the navigation console, her hands hovering over the controls, her mind focused entirely on the complex dance of gravitational forces and radiation patterns that surrounded them. This was the moment for which she had been preparing for 6 months, or perhaps for the past 4 years. Artemis 10, this is Mission Control, came the delayed transmission from Earth. We've received your approach plan. Be advised that our models show higher risk levels than your calculations indicate. Recommend reverting to original approach trajectory. Commander Pierce looked to Maya, who shook her head firmly. Mission Control, this is Artemis 10, Pierce responded. We are proceeding with Captain Chen's approach plan. Our on-site observations confirm her calculations. We'll maintain communication as radiation levels permit. She switched to the internal communication system. All stations prepare for Jupiter orbital insertion. Navigation has primary authority during approach phase. Maya took a deep breath, centering herself as she had done countless times in simulation. But this was no simulation. This was the real mission that no one else could fly. The moment when all her unique skills and experiences would be put to the ultimate test. "Beginning approach sequence," she announced, her voice calm and focused. All systems transferring to manual navigation control. As Artemis 10 began its carefully calculated dance with the most massive planet in the solar system, Maya felt a profound sense of rightness. The woman they had called simulation only was now guiding humanity's most ambitious mission through dangers that no computer could navigate alone. And she was exactly where she needed to be. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.